Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So Tarek and continuing a series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and it's been 48 hours since Robert or FPGAZumSpass updated the Nintendo 64 core, and that means we have not one but two new cores, one late yesterday afternoon and one early this morning. So we're going to be doing some more testing because every time a new core comes out, some new games start working. We got some heavy hitters for you guys this week. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And if you want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But don't worry everyone, Waluigi's taco stand is now working in the core. It's the one you've all been waiting for. All jokes aside, this is obviously a fan ROM, but I will show you some more of it in the next video I do. But I wanted to lead with a Waluigi taco joke because I did eat tacos yesterday and it felt appropriate. But the real big heavy hitter this core is Kirby 64 is now running. This is one of my favorite games on the Nintendo 64, pretty much directly behind Bomberman Hero. This is one of the most colorful, cute, and intriguing Kirby games I think Nintendo has ever made outside of the most recent Switch release, which I absolutely do love as well. I love my Kirby in 3D, and Kirby on the Nintendo 64 is delivering in spades. And as you can see here with the intro cutscene, this just looks 100% accurate to me. Sure, there's not the blur in it yet, and there's no anti-aliasing, but those are pixel peeping things. If you just handed me a controller and told me to play Kirby, I would say it feels exactly like you would expect it to play and look. And again, this game is just so colorful, so vibrant, and so creative. It is one of my favorite games, whether I'm playing it on MiSTer or on original hardware. And this is one that everyone was super excited to play because it's one game that everyone seems to remember from the system. I just love that Kirby basically takes his face off and throws it like a boomerang. If he's not an eldritch horde and didn't start the Big Bang of the universe by eating things, I really don't know how it happened. But all Kirby eating jokes aside, seeing this run again is just so spectacular. Don't forget, like 9 weeks ago, we were basically looking at test ROMs that said Hello World on the screen. Now we are playing Kirby 64. This has only been playable for about 18 hours at this point in time, so I don't know if you can complete it yet or not. You can get pretty far into the game, but like every test core, there is the potential that it will freeze like 10 minutes after you stop watching this video in the level structure. So just be aware, give it a chance, give it a try, but don't be surprised if you don't see the end of it. But what is working here on MiSTer today just seems like real hardware. All of the graphics are intact, all of the music sounds great. I'm going to give you a sound example later on in the video because I am going to cut Kirby into two different spots because I've got more to show you. But again, just look at everything right here. It looks like that little polygon around the boss, that little tube might be missing one little scrap, but otherwise nothing on this screen leads me to believe that it's not just drawing the graphics correctly. And when we do get to the sound example, that sounds great as well. And I just love this game for so many reasons. It has this 2D, 3D aesthetic going on. You can see into the background, and you can see all of the graphics are where they need to be. All of the platforms, all of the stained glass windows, everything is drawing in the right order. That would be instantaneously noticeable if it wasn't in the right place. But right now on the current core, if you download it, if you want to play Kirby 64, you can. And be aware the unstable MiSTer main is no longer required to play these games. You can be on main MiSTer. Now another game that just started working that didn't really seem to work before is Puyo Puyo. Now this was captured off last night's core, and this morning's core does fix a few graphical glitches, so it's possible that a couple little aberrations you see on screen here for Puyo Puyo may already be repaired. Of course, I'm going to follow up with another video in a couple days because the speed of this project is just absolutely wild. But there are these fun games on the Nintendo 64 that you don't think of as much as stuff like Kirby. Puyo Puyo's been on pretty much any platform ever invented, and it is always an absolute blast of a game. It's basically like Tetris, except not at all at the same time. I've been playing Puyo Puyo since basically the Mega Drive days, and every single time I get a chance to play it, I 100% take it, and it's another game that is now working on MiSTer FPGA for Nintendo 64. We're getting to the point now where so much of the library does work. We're just looking for those TLB games with the virtual RAM paging, and hopefully that comes in the next month or so, but that is a little bit bigger of a project, so don't expect that in 48 hours unless Robert's been fooling us all. But the sound is incredible. Go ahead and listen for 35-40 seconds. I'll come back and show you some more games. If there's anything wrong with the audio, I certainly can't hear it, and outside of a few graphical glitches, which I say may be actually taken care of at this point in time, I've got some captures from this morning, but it does take a long time to get all of this stuff, and big thanks to NDD for helping as well. You will see here that, again, it's just a playable game, and if you've never played a Puyo Puyo before, 100% check this game out. It's one of those things you think you're going to play for 10 minutes, and suddenly 2 hours has gone by, and you wondered where your day went. It is amazing. Now, a lot of people have been asking if Top Gear Overdrive works, and it now does, and you can race around the entire track as a taco. Again, I ate tacos yesterday, but I am not a hard shell man, so I can't really approve this video because I do not like the hard shell. But tell me down below, are you a hard shell taco fan or a soft shell? I'm highly assuming most people are going to go for that soft corn tortilla. If you don't, I might judge you. But this is another game. It's an awesome racing game on the system, definitely in the B tier compared to something like Rush 2 or 2049 in my opinion, but it is working, and it didn't used to work very well at all before. It is definitely hard to control a taco as a race car, especially when the wheels are tomatoes and they probably mush in every little depression in the road. But it is another game that's been promoted to working. You can get around the track, you can get a race in, and you can explode your taco on the street. Do with that pun as you will. But it's just so much fun again to see these games come alive. This core is basically being developed in Warp Drive, where all of a sudden a new update brings a dozen or so games that are working that didn't used to work before. In the next video I'm going to show you guys some improvements to Ocarina of Time as well, because some of the graphics in that have been improved. I just didn't have time to get that capture before I had to go to voiceover today, and I do like to move some of the content around to keep things fresh. But if you want to play Top Gear Overdrive, if you want to take a hot lap as a taco, it is something that you can do the minute you're done watching this video. And it is great that this has moved on to stable MiSTer, that we don't have to worry about installing new operating systems to get to unstable. Now, as a fun demo, this is the Mega Texture demo. What this is doing is it's basically increasing the texture size and resolution to get it closer to something that the GameCube would look like. Now, this one little room here basically almost maximizes the largest cartridge storage space that the Nintendo 64 offered. So obviously this is not something you can make an entire game out of, but this right here does not even look like the Nintendo 64. This looks like a GameCube kind of prototype demo when the hardware was in development, but it is working on the core, which means it works on original hardware. But just look at the resolution of these textures, look at them displayed on screen. This is nothing you would have ever seen when the Nintendo 64 was new back in the day, and just getting a look at what was possible is not only fun, it's awesome to see these newer fan demos working on the core. That means that it's doing the exact same thing as original hardware would do again, and I do think it's fun. You can flip the camera upside down as well. But imagine if all of Nintendo 64 games looked like this. The Nintendo 64 geometry with the amount of polygons it could handle, but a resolution that was getting close to like Dreamcast and GameCube era resolutions. That would be such a fun thing to see, and I'd be really curious to see what type of game could be made in this mode dealing with those storage capacities. But honestly, just like some stuff on the Nintendo 64, maybe there's a modification that could be made that would allow larger carts to run on the system. I'd love to see it. You never know what could happen. I mean, we have MSU1 on Super Nintendo. Why can't we do something like that for the Nintendo 64? And before you think I know something that you don't, I am just presuming things into the ether. I have no information that nobody else does. But back to Kirby again. I just love this game. It is spectacular, and this has one of the best soundtracks on the Nintendo 64 as well, in my opinion, rivaled only again by Bomberman Hero. I get that most people probably like this game more than Bomberman Hero, and that's fair. I'm not trying to convince you it is the best. I'm just telling you I think it's the best. But go ahead and listen to this soundtrack and cutscene for like 45 seconds. It sounds perfect. Enjoy. I mean, I played this game a ton, and I recently finished it like 6 months ago on Steam Deck, and all of the sound effects and music just sound correct to me here. But tell me down below what you think. It's one of those things, Nintendo 64 never had the best sound quality, but what's sounding here is accurate in my opinion, and I love these cutscenes as well. They're filled with so much charm, with so little dialogue, and again, just such iconic scenes from the game. This boss battle here is pretty much in every third screenshot you saw back in the day, and seeing it come alive on MiSTer in real time is nothing short of spectacular. And I know me saying that's become a meme at this point in time, but that's how excited I get to see these things. Now I can put this game on my original Nintendo 64 on my PVM and play it totally fine. I can grab my Steam Deck and play this. I can play it on my PC. I am not wanting for abilities to play this game, but seeing it run on MiSTer FPGA is like playing it for the first time again. It's just so much fun to follow the progress in real time. It does feel like being back in the late 90s, early 2000s when emulation was just getting big. I remember like 2004 playing on my laptop in an airport waiting to go somewhere for work, and I was playing Super Mario 64 via emulation, and it just seemed so amazing to do it. But if you want to play Kirby 64 today on the MiSTer FPGA core, you're going to 100% get it done, and I can't recommend you do it enough. Now onto Cruisn Exotica, and this makes a hat trick for the core. Cruisn USA, Cruisn World, and Cruisn Exotica are all now playable, and you can have a ton of fun with all of them. It was only like 2.5 weeks ago where only one was playable and it was in half speed. Now we have all three games near to perfect. Now I'm not saying that Cruisn Exotica is the best racing game on the Nintendo 64, it's a lot of fun, but at this point in time, at least back in the day, Cruisn seemed to be getting a little bit stale. But I am having so much fun watching this game run on the current core, because it has been some time since I've last checked it out. And these are definitely iconic games on the system, especially Cruisn USA. It went from having one playable to now all three playable. You can go through the entire Cruisn trilogy on this system, and you can have a ton of fun doing it. And it is a really fun game. It's just one of those things. I had all three games back in the 90s, and by the time we got to Exotica, I think even I was exhausted by the formula, and I love arcade racing games, but to see the hat trick come to MiSTer and be able to finish a race is nothing short of just sheer fun. This was a wacky series that just kept getting crazier as the games went on. I mean, we're underwater here, there's sharks driving above us, and I'm saying driving, not swimming, as this is a race, they must have engines, and it just works. And I will say that the soundtrack is pretty close to accurate as well. Just go ahead and listen for 20 seconds and I'll be right back. Sounds a tiny bit muffled, but I remember the original game doing that as well, and I do have the cartridge in my collection, so at some point in time when we get close to comparing this to real hardware, I will definitely have to check this out. But Cruisn USA, Cruisn World, and Cruisn Exotica are all working on the current core, and tell me down below which one your favorite is. I would go with Cruisn World. I think it's the best example of this game before it got a little bit too wild in Cruisn Exotica. Now moving on to another game that is now working better, Earthworm Jim. Now here's the thing about Earthworm Jim. It's not as bad as you heard it is, but it's also not as good as a lot of the other best platformers on the Nintendo 64. They kind of did Earthworm Jim a little dirty here in 3D. It was a great franchise in 2D, maybe not my favorite thing in the world, but I did play it and love it a lot back in the day. And this is one of those games that first started working when the core started doing something. So to see it now just basically executing exactly as it should, it's so much fun. And if you see some weird camera angles, that's not the core breaking. This game just had a lot of trouble with dealing with that 3D camera, but it does have so much charm. Using Earthworm Jim to whip the hamster on the wheel to open the door is that classic Earthworm Jim humor that everyone did fall in love with back in the day. Or you come into this room here and all 5 refrigerators come up basically like intercontinental ballistic missiles, and you get to launch them into the game, and that's pretty much a thing with all Earthworm Jim games. If you're not launching something into the air that's going to affect the game later on in the most random and hilarious way, you're really not playing an Earthworm Jim game, and we get the golden udder right here. This game just has a thing for cows, and it's going to run with it. But again, give it a try. Don't think this game is as bad as you've heard if you've never played it before. Just be aware that I'm not calling it a hidden gem or a game that you absolutely have to experience. I'm saying it is better than you would expect it to be, especially if you played all of the 3D platformers on the Nintendo 64 and you're looking for something new. There's definitely worse platformers out there. People compare this game to Bubsy 3D, and that is an all day long, not fair comparison. But again, it's certainly no Super Mario 64 either. But the game does have a really fun sense of humor that definitely played better better in the 90s, but has aged better than you would expect as well. I just love this golden god guru cow here doing yoga while floating in the air. It makes no sense whatsoever, but in the universe of Earthworm Jim, nothing has to make sense. You can do whatever you want, and more often than not, it is pretty fun to watch. And the only thing that really hasn't aged well in this game are the 3D shooting mechanics, especially with the camera that just gets locked behind things completely. But the soundtrack is good, the sound effects sound clear here. Go ahead and listen for 20 seconds and come back because I got one more game to show you.
Leprechaun!
Sounds really good. It's a weird kind of pseudo country music. What I love is Peter Puppy here comes into this eyeball that looks like Earthworm Jim. It is just so strange. It's one of those games you have to experience at least once. And big thanks to HM Powered Man for sending me this Smash remix capture. A lot of people asked for more Smash content, and I am not the best Smash player in the world, and Andy D, who's been helping me out with captures, definitely isn't either because he was having some control issues. But HM Powered Man came through with some actually good Smash gameplay that I can show you here, and this is the remix version. The great part about something like this is if you want to play Smash on original hardware, you need to either own an expensive original cartridge if you don't have it, or you need to have a flash card to load up the remix. Now with MiSTer in the future, you're going to have 4-player Smash in FPGA, you're going to load up the ROM, and you're going to be off to the races fighting your friends and having an absolute good time. Because that's the other thing about Nintendo 64. The hardware, the controllers, and the games have all gone up obscenely in value. I was at a gaming store last week and I saw a copy of Smash on sale for $160 with a ripped label. I would never pay that for this game or any other game of this era, especially when you can get a Japanese cartridge for cheaper. But it's not just fun to see this hardware be recreated in FPGA, it's fun to know that in the future you're going to be able to get 3 of your friends together, pop open some drinks, and play a game like this without having to buy 4 controllers, a console, and an expensive copy of a cartridge or a flash cart so you can play Remix. This is the great part about MiSTer. It's not just to see your games come alive again, it's for the preservation and fun of the future so we can keep playing the games we love long after all the original hardware is dead and gone. Goemon wins and we can move on. But that's the current situation with the core. The most updated version was this morning around like 6:30 a.m. I saw it right after I got up. And of course I'll probably be back with another video on this in another 48 hours because I'm sure more changes will come. And I've got a lot of captures that didn't make this video because it's Saturday and I don't want to hit you with a 30-minute runtime. Short of that, leave me a comment down below. Tell me the next game you want to see tested. I'm always happy to take requests and it's a ton of fun covering them. But Nintendo 64 on MiSTer just keeps getting better every time we get a new core. Hope you guys are having a fun weekend. Bye-bye.